Whether you are single or in a relationship or marriage, you need to watch this video. Because the reality is that you are very likely at some point in life going to find yourself questioning if you should continue to give this man a chance. Now, prayerfully, I hope I said that right. In prayer, I hope that you won't have to experience that question, that you won't have to reach those crossroads. But for the average person, it happens. Because unfortunately, we're human beings. And as human beings, we're going to make mistakes. And we all know, you all know, men ain't perfect. Y'all ain't perfect neither. Nobody's perfect. And in that lack of perfection, there's going to be things done that can rock the boat, that can create some tensions, all right? And so when you look at successful relationships and you talk to these individuals, you don't find two people who say typically they're not saying we've never had any issues. It's that we learned how to get past them. We learned how to overcome them. But also in learning how to overcome them is also understanding, are you working with someone who you can overcome them with? All right? So the point here is how to know you should keep trying with this man. And I'm going to lay out the 3 key things, but then I have some audience submitted questions that I'm going to answer at the end related to this topic, okay? So the first way to know you should keep trying with this man is that he can acknowledge the issue. Now, some of you may say, well, there's plenty of guys who acknowledge and don't do a thing about it. We'll get to that, but understand this. Acknowledging is the first step. You know, it's like we can't get anywhere together if we can't accept this is a problem. And though it may seem simple, though it may seem like, well, that's not enough, and of course there is more to be done, the reality is that many women, it might be you, have dealt with or are dealing with a man who isn't even acknowledging the issue. And there's this constant dismissing of how you feel, this constant, oh, you're crazy, or we don't need to talk about, this is not a problem, boom, 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 boom. All right? Now, before I get deeper into that, this hit my spirit, and I'm thinking about a specific couple I counseled one time, where I do want you to understand that don't confuse early dismissal with we've actually talked about this multiple times. Now, why are we still dwelling on it? Okay? So what I mean by that is this. You may have a scenario where, let's just say this man flirted with a woman. I'm just giving a random example, all right? It was inappropriate. You guys discuss it. He acknowledges the issue. He says, you know what? I got beside myself. I lost track. I'm sorry. I understand this doesn't need to happen. I'm going to change, right? And then you guys continue from there. And from there, he is not engaging in this inappropriate behavior. But you still feel some kind of way about the fact that I can't believe this joker had the nerve to flirt with this woman, right? So you bring it back up. And again, he's telling you, okay, listen, I know you're right. It was wrong. Boom, boom, boom. Y'all may have several conversations like that. And then at some point, he gets to a level of, why are we still talking about this? Why are we still replaying this scenario? Now, if this is what happens, you can't apply that to the same guy who dismissed it from the jump. You can't say, well, he's not acknowledging the issue. No, he acknowledged it several times. There comes a point where you do have to be willing to let it go. All right? If it was addressed and if it has been corrected in behavior, you can't keep bringing it up. Now, I heard somebody on social media say, oh, you know, people have to accept that we heal at different times. And if, you know, as a woman, if you're not past it, then that's okay. You know, he needs to be reminded of what he did. That's not healthy. There's nothing healthy about that. If it was addressed, if it has been corrected, we got to move on. We can't stay on it. So if that is the case where we've talked about this multiple times and now he's dismissing it, look at it for what it is. But getting back to the original point, a lot of men who do just dismiss you from the jump and not even want to address it this is not somebody you can work with. Now, of course, do we stop there? No. After he acknowledges the issue, and let me also say this, please make sure that you fully express what the issue is, okay? So let's use the flirting, for example, all right? And let's just say he flirted with a woman, woman passed by, he looks at her, and let's just say when you stepped away, he had a little small talk with her, all right? That came off as flirting. All right? Again, and I'm not saying any of this is appropriate. I'm just trying to give an example so I can lay out how to look at these things. And so, though you were mad at him flirting with the woman, the real issue for you, the big issue for you was, why would you feel so comfortable doing this when I'm out with you? Not to say that if you weren't there, it makes it okay. But it's more like, okay, there's a deeper level to why I feel some kind of way about this. And so what I'm trying to convey here is, if you simply say to the man, oh, it's an issue of you flirted with this woman, and then he says, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do it again. I understand. I'm sorry. I respect how you feel. Problem solved. Well, the problem's not really solved because the deeper issue wasn't revealed. And what's lingering in you, which is what probably contributes to why you keep bringing it back up if you end up in that scenario, is because the deeper issue wasn't addressed and resolved, which is, how could you feel so comfortable doing this in the first place? Why did I even need to tell you this was a problem? All right? That's what's really getting at you. And so when we say address it for him to acknowledge it, I mean everything. You've got to dig deep inside of you to pull out, these are all the reasons why this offended me, or this was a problem, or why this has to stop if we're going to continue in this relationship. So that way he can acknowledge all the levels of this issue, all the layers that exist, and true resolution can be found. Because if he corrects the surface issue of the flirting, but the deeper issue of why he even felt comfortable doing that while you was out with him is not addressed, y'all will never have peace in that relationship. And it won't work, because even if it doesn't come back up, even if you're not the person that brings back up the conversation, it will come out of you in different ways. You'll feel some kind of way towards him. There might be an attitude, and it'll start to create other issues in that relationship. But anyways, let's continue. So he's acknowledged the issue. That's step one. Step two, he understands the issue or accepts the issue. Now, let me say this. I used to be a huge believer, and I say used to, it's kind of very recent used to. Used to be the huge believer that there has to be a full understanding for there to be true change to occur. And for a chance to really be given, for this man to show that he has turned the corner, he has to be able to explain to you how he understands the issue. And what I meant by that was essentially like, you have scenarios where the guy says, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Or, I acknowledge this is a problem. Let's move forward. We're going to do better. But he doesn't understand and can't articulate why it was a problem. And in a lot of cases, when someone lacks an understanding, there isn't a full connection to it. All right. So basically what I'm getting at here is, if a man views, so let's use the whole flirting thing, but let's use online. Let's use he's liking other women's pictures on Instagram, right? And so you don't like it, it pisses you off, and you let him know about it. And to him, it's like, I don't see the big deal. I generally don't understand what your problem is, because to me, it's not a problem. To me, it's not a big deal. Now, let's say because he does not want to lose you, and he wants to get the relationship to continue to move forward, he says, okay, I will stop doing this. And let's just say you say to him, okay, can you explain to me why? Like, do you understand why this is a problem for me? And he really can't explain to you why. My concern becomes that because he's doing it to appease you, not because he understands it, there's a very good chance he'll fall back into it. All right? And so that's why I push people to try to grasp it at a deeper level as to why this is a problem and really understanding why this would bother your partner, or in the man's case, bother his woman. Now, I started this off by saying I used to believe that. And I still believe that to a certain extent. But I have come to the realization that sometimes a full understanding may not happen. And if he can at least accept, then it's at least enough to give him a chance. Okay? I cannot confidently say that this means the problem is completely solved or will never happen again. Because I do still think that deeper understanding will truly solidify the change that needs to occur. But if that man is willing to say, you know what, it isn't a big deal to me, but I accept it's a problem for you. And with that, I will still no longer engage in that behavior. Then I think he has earned the right to still continue to try with this man. Of course, keep your eyes open, not in a you're looking for something bad to happen next, but just that you remain aware and you understand that. Also, we've got to realize that with change, Rome isn't built in a day. And I'm going to get more into this in the next point, but everyone's not going to be perfect with that change right off the bat. And there's a process we have to go through. And there's a level of patience that we have to give, or a level of grace that we have to give. And we have to recognize some deeper things. But again, we'll hold off to that in the next point. To wrap this one up, the bottom line is, if he can come to an understanding, that would be the ultimate goal. And definitely like, okay, you can keep trying with this man. But if he can at least show that he's accepting it, then okay, we can now move on to the number 3. All right, so now the third way to know that you should keep trying with him is after he's acknowledged it, understood or accepted it, he is now making consistent effort and progress. All right? So let's start with consistent effort, okay? If this, and this is why I kind of ended that last point the way I did. The main thing is he even trying? All right? Because as I said, people won't always be perfect. Now, granted, I think certain things are more cut and dry. I honestly don't think liking a woman's picture, this is my personal opinion, I don't think if he's agreed to not like pictures that it's almost like, oh my God, I can't control my finger. It's like, come on now. Like, it ain't that hard. If you accept that you're not going to like a picture, cool. Now, here's one that I think may be a lot harder for a guy. If he, and I wouldn't suggest a man do this if he can't really do it, but if he says, I will never look at a woman when we're walking in the street who looks good, right? People feel various ways about it, but the reality is that if people are honest, there's a lot of men and women who will look if an attractive person passes by. And that's something that can be harder to, like, in that moment, always be mindful and not reactive if you're so accustomed to already doing it, okay? But I think something like online, there's a little bit more less of a, oh, I can't control myself type of deal. So there's going to be varying situations where it shouldn't be so hard to make consistent progress and stick with it. There's going to be other things where it may be more difficult. Another example is, and I'm going to use me. I'm going to be vulnerable here, all right? So I had a person once tell me I speak too harshly to them. I'm very demanding, all right? And even though I'm like, but yo, like, I don't mean anything bad. I don't talk to you disrespectfully. I'm a very loving, compassionate individual. So I didn't think in those moments, if I forgot to say please, right? Like, I'd be like, yo, go grab that for me, right? And some women might take that as, as a little, why can't you say please or nicer or whatever? Anyways, so if I say, okay, you know what? I'm going to fix that. I understand it's a problem for you. I will be more mindful of how I speak. But the way we speak is something that requires a level of reprogramming to a certain extent. And because it's become such a habit to speak a certain way, this will require more practice, patience in doing better. And this is where you as a partner have to be able to recognize he is making an effort. He's trying to catch himself. Or when I point it out, he accepts it and he corrects it. All right. But does it mean he will always be perfect? No. Now, of course, some of you might be saying, well, what if the way he's speaking to you is flat out verbal abuse? And that makes it trickier. I'm not going to lie to you because I don't in any way want to condone verbal abuse. But to not be hypocritical here, I still think there's a level of, if he's used to being very sharp with his words, but he's making a real effort to change it. And again, I think the key is if he does it, he slips, he says something he's not supposed to be saying. In that moment, you say, listen, we talked about this. You're not going to talk to me like that. If in that moment he says, okay, you're right, I'm sorry, that slipped out, and you see there's constant progress, I'm still willing to give a little more leeway because I do understand that the unfortunate reality is that some people have come from very unhealthy backgrounds. And depending on how long you guys have engaged in this unhealthy talk in the relationship, so it's one thing when it's carrying from a previous relationship into a new one. And please, I don't want anyone to misconstrue this with, you should just deal with it and suck it up. In no way, all right? So keep this in proper context. And I think that in many cases, the answer may simply be, all right, until he can learn how to talk properly, maybe we should just take a break from each other, break up until you can get this right. But I do think that if we're going to be real with each other right now, a lot of people who are in these types of relationships or have gone through it, they don't want to walk away. Whether they should or they shouldn't, it's very difficult for many people. And my thing is this, as much as I encourage you to do what's best, and let's just say again, because some of y'all ain't going to like this, but I got to be real. I know of situations where men, because of unhealed parts of them, acted out in ways that were very unhealthy. Not because they did not love the woman or truly value the woman, but because they did not master or learn how to control the things within them. Again, that isn't to say accept it. That isn't to allow abuse. That isn't to allow physical abuse. Any of that, okay? It is to simply say that if he is showing real change, you know what? I'm sorry. I just don't want to take any chances here. So what's hitting my spirit is this. If we are crossing the line into abusive behavior, we just can't tolerate it. And I think what would be best, like I was trying to be open-minded to a certain extent, but I don't want people watching this video to then use that to validate holding on to an abuser. I just cannot take that chance. So I have to just right now say, listen, if he wants another opportunity, he's going to have to show growth outside of being in a relationship with you. Because true change doesn't just happen within the relationship. It happens to the whole person. It's almost like, listen, if he's verbally abusive to you, right? And he has this bad, and I think in general, verbally abusive people, well, you know what? Sometimes they don't show it to other people and it's only in a relationship. What I was trying to get at is true change would occur. Like you could see it in how they interact with others as well. If there's underlying anger and hot temper and things of that nature, they should be able to show change in a general sense before you could even consider giving it another opportunity. I have had men who've come to me asking for help in that regard, asking that, you know, they want to be better. They don't want to be that way anymore. They have issues. But again, to not take any chances, I'm just going to tell you ladies that's watching this, don't tolerate it. Don't accept it. But outside of the abusive talk, sometimes like in my example, just speaking harshly or maybe being a little too demanding and forgetting to say please, things like that, that's a lot more tolerable, or a lot more tolerable in the sense that we can work with this whilst remaining in a relationship together. That's where you just want to be mindful of. He's making an effort. He's showing progress. All right. Not perfection, but progress. And I think that that progress can turn into, I say, a level of perfection in the sense that it no longer is a consistent issue. All right. And what you want to do in that process that's so important is recognize the progress, recognize the effort. There's nothing worse. I've seen it in so many married couples where I'll sit down with a married couple and the woman has reached a point where she feels like, I've tried so hard for all these years, bump all that. It's his turn to show me he's changed and he's serious, right? And I'll tell the man, all right, this is what you got to start doing. And he'll start doing those things. He really wants to work this out. He's trying to be better. He's not dismissing the issue. All right. So he's putting in the effort. But because the woman has been so jaded for so long, it's this wait and see approach. Because in your mind as a woman, you're like, well, how do I know this is real change? Which I'm going to answer that because that's one of the questions I got that was submitted to me. So in this fear of, well, I can't really trust this, I got to wait to see this. I got to see him keep doing this even longer. But in that, you're not acknowledging his effort. You're not giving him any encouragement, any praise, anything like that. So the man starts to reach a point of, this ain't working. I'm doing all this stuff that she asked me to do, and I don't see change with her. I don't see things getting better. And yes, on your end, it's like, well, I've been mistreated for so long. You can't expect me to now just be all over you and be happy. True. But you still have to acknowledge and recognize the effort. You have to pour something and start to build towards where you guys can completely pour into each other. So that's an important phase. So he's got to be willing to show consistent effort and progress. And, you got to pour into it. And again, I just want to say one more time, I really hope none of y'all took that earlier thing the wrong way. I hope I corrected it properly, because again, I don't want you guys to hold on to unhealthy situations. And that's why sometimes giving advice through YouTube videos can be tricky because I don't get to sit down one-on-one with all y'all. Unfortunately, I just don't have time to sit down with everybody. And some of your situations need, we need to be able to go over more of the details to really dissect it and guide you. And sometimes general advice can be taken the wrong way. So I just want to make sure, again, that you understand verbal abuse is not acceptable. It's not okay. All right. So, hey, real quick before I continue, if you want to receive the best piece of relationship advice I've ever gotten, be sure to click the link in the comment section below and I'll get it to you right away. You're going to love it. So again, click the link in the comment section. All right. So like I said, I have some audience submitted questions on this topic that I wanted to answer to give more clarity to this discussion. So the first question is, how do I know he's really changed? How do I know that he's not just doing this temporarily to win me back? So the unfortunate reality is that there is no surefire way to know unless you are a willing participant in growing together in the right direction. All right? Meaning, as I mentioned at the end of point number 3, if you don't encourage and embrace the progress and the effort, you could derail the whole thing, even though he actually was serious about his change. And some of you may say, well, if he really changed, then it wouldn't make a difference. To a certain extent, yes. But it's going to be hard for him to show up properly when he feels like this isn't getting him anywhere. All right? People want to know that their efforts are being received. And so there is a level of you having to embrace it to see it. But I think more importantly, when you're trying to evaluate if this man is really serious or he's just playing the temporary game, is evaluate the relationship outside of this specific issue. I think the mistake a lot of women make is you're so focused on this issue that you're forgetting all the other issues that exist. All right? Or on the flip side, you're so focused on the issue, you're overlooking all the other good that exists in every other area but this one thing. So, for example, again, you're so focused on him liking a picture on Instagram, but how about the fact that he don't have no boundaries with his female friends? How about the fact that he's out late nights and doing all kinds of, you know what? Like, how about the fact that he's also not treating you with respect or pouring into you? How about the fact, I feel the need to say this, how about the fact that he's laying up on your couch while you take care of him? I hope that didn't hurt some of y'all feelings, but I had to put it out there. It's like, so we worried about this one issue, but there's a lot of other issues. And so to me, okay, yeah, he's showing progress here, but if the rest of the stuff is jacked up, it doesn't matter. He still has to go. But now on the flip side, sometimes you let that one thing blind you from the fact that this man has been nothing but amazing to you. But you're holding on for dear life to this one issue. And I feel the need, you know, things are always hitting my spirit. Sometimes you're using that one thing to hold over his head because you're afraid to be fully vulnerable with this man. This one issue, this one mistake he made gives you the excuse and the validation to keep your wall up so you can feel safer. And I say safer in quotation marks because I always say the same walls you have up to protect you or that you think are protecting you are actually blocking your blessings. It's not keeping you safe. It's actually hurting you even more. All right? And so some of you don't want to let go of the issue. Don't want to acknowledge this man has been so great otherwise. Because again, it makes you fall into this vulnerable place that you're scared to be in. And you got to recognize that. Because I've seen women hold one thing over a man's head who truly from top to bottom was awesome, but he got it wrong in this one thing and he's trying to get it right and make it better. But she won't let that man be great and great for her. And eventually the whole thing gets sabotaged. But then she says, well, if you never did this, and true, that may have gotten the ball rolling, but you gotta be able to let it go if it's been addressed. And that's what I said earlier. You can't keep holding it over his head. That's not healthy. We gotta be able to move forward. So that's how you can tell to me, or that's a good way to evaluate if this is not just if he's really changed, but if this is a man even worth trying to give another chance to. Look at the overall relationship. The second question is, are there any situations where he should not be given a second chance at all? All right? In fairness, this is very tough to say. So and this may seem like a cop-out, but I got to do it this way. For those of you who are believers, you got to pray. All right? Because I think what some people may find indefensible and even unforgivable. And now let me make clear, I'm a person who believes nothing is unforgivable. Not so my quote is, nothing is unforgivable. Plenty of things are unacceptable. All right? Forgiveness is for you. And from a biblical perspective, you know, God says if we can't forgive others, we can't look for him to forgive us. We want his forgiveness, we got to forgive others. That's the rule. Okay? So we have to embrace forgiveness. We got to give grace in that way. But that doesn't mean we have to accept the behavior. It doesn't mean we have to continue being with this person. All right? You can still set yourself free and forgive. However, there are situations that to one person is like, oh no, never take a man back if he did such and such. And then to the next woman, it might be like, you know what? I'm willing to give this man a chance. So it's hard for me to point out what that thing should be for you. And that's why I would encourage you to pray about it. I would encourage you to be honest with yourself about what you can handle. All right. I'm sure if we thought about it longer, there might be some extreme, like, I mean, if he murdered someone in your family, I think that's probably one that's clear cut for everybody. Right. Listen, as crazy as it sounds, there's probably still some people out there who might take that man back, depending on what the circumstances were surrounding the situation. That sounds crazy, but it does happen. Either way, you gotta decide that for yourself. But I do think that, again, prayer, and also always, we've got to learn when an issue is a symptom of you being with the wrong person, or an issue is a mistake or poor decision someone has made. And I think one of the ways that always helps that, as I said earlier, is evaluate the overall relationship. Typically, if it's a poor decision that was made, this person is on point in so many other, like in all the other ways, they're awesome. And maybe this is the one place they fell short. And this is where it's like, all right, maybe we can give more grace in this regard. Whereas the person who is showing they're falling short in multiple areas, then I don't think there's anything to fix here. It's just you got to let them go. Third question is, so when is enough enough? All right. And this is another one where I think, well, you know what? I was going to say kind of the same answer as the second question, where you got to determine that for yourself and what you can handle. But I think really enough is enough when we've addressed this. We've exhausted all of our options. So what I mean by that is, okay, if we've tried counseling, we've talked about this, we've taken the necessary steps and nothing is working, or we're not seeing progress, it's done. Or if this person does not want to, they don't even do the 3 things I mentioned. They don't accept and acknowledge. They don't understand they don't acknowledge the issue. They don't understand or accept. They're not willing to make any efforts. It's enough. It's done. You know what I'm saying? That person, you have to let them go and just keep it moving. But again, I'm still going to throw in there, always pray, because that's always going to be beneficial, because our paths sometimes are very unique. And what needs to happen in them is something that we should always consult God on. All right, the next question is, what's the difference between he keeps making the same mistake and he keeps making different mistakes? All right. So same mistake versus continuously different mistakes. Same mistake is the dude that I'm not going to give as much grace to or give leeway to at all. Because he's repeating the same issue over and over. You talked about this, and he keeps doing it. It's like, this just can't be fixed. This just might be who he is. End of story. We move on from that. The second guy, who he's not repeating the same mistake, but there's always this new mistake. This is a little trickier, because I do think this is a matter of, have you to addressed all the things that are required in this relationship? The pet peeves, the issues, the deal breakers, all of that. If that discussion has been made and he keeps making new mistakes out of things you guys have discussed, that's a problem. If this is a guy making new mistakes on things that were never addressed and discussed, then there's more of a level of, okay, he's trying to learn. And as long as he's willing to accept when you're saying this is a problem, and then he's showing a pattern of, he makes a mistake, you address it, he fixes it, it doesn't happen again, then that's a guy we can give more of a chance to, all right? Because he simply hasn't fully learned you yet. Whereas the other guy, he just isn't getting it right, or he's just telling you that he's going to change and he's not changing at all. All right, so one more thing I want to mention to you ladies is this. At the end of the day, when trying to determine, finding the ways to know if you should keep trying with this man, is always make sure you're doing your part, all right? Again, as I mentioned earlier, when a man's making effort, he wants to know his efforts are being received. Acknowledge them, encourage them, compliment the way that he's pouring into you and making these changes, all right? But then also make sure that you haven't turned this into, he needs to basically prove to me and perform for me, and I get to sit back and do nothing. Because that will destroy the relationship too. I've seen situations where, because the man makes a mistake, the relationship gets flipped to one side, right? And so now it's all about what this man needs to do better. And now the woman completely neglects her part in the relationship. And there's only so long this man can do better without seeing you doing better too, without seeing you pour back into him what he needs. Not just in acknowledging his efforts, but being the woman he was hoping to be with, you know, or once with, or whatever the case may be. So you want to make sure that you don't scapegoat his issues as a reason to be less than who you should be in that relationship. I think everybody, man or woman, should always strive to show up as their best. And then if that partner cannot step up to the plate and match that energy, you let them go. But you never stoop down to their level, because once you do, it becomes this ongoing cycle where you stoop down to his, so now he stoops down a couple more, and now you go back down even lower, and it's just a battle of who's going to be worse and tit for tat. Well, you did this, so I'm going to do that. No, it's not healthy. It's not good. You either stay being your best or you walk away. That's how you ensure greater success in your life and in relationships. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. Marriage is a beautiful thing when you go into it with the right foundation and the right person. But the unfortunate reality is that millions of people have not done that.